Hello friends, today we are going to learn about the hummingbird that lived through winter chapter from English buzzword book.
So today we are going to learn about a chapter the hummingbird that lived through winter. So before starting this chapter, let me tell you what is hummingbird.
So it is a picture of the hummingbird. It is a summer bird. And this story tells how this bird survived through the winter by the love and care of an old man named Dick Wren.
Basically in this chapter we are going to learn about the main theme of the chapter is the hummingbird, one hummingbird that lived through the winter season. Okay, and this story tells us about the hummingbird, how it lived through winter, and about a old man named Dick Wren, about his kind and beautiful nature towards the hummingbird, and how they rescued the bird that lived through the winter. So now let's go into the story and understand it. The narrator recalls the adventures of a hummingbird which doesn't live their neighborhood in Fresno, California during the severe winter there, and the story also highlights the compassionate nature of an old neighbor, Dick Wren. So basically, the narrator is recalling the adventure of a hummingbird which doesn't leave their neighborhood in a place, Fresno, California, during the severe winter there. Severe means extreme winter, painful and very snow was falling there. Extreme winter. It's not a normal kind of winter there. And this story highlights about the compassionate nature of an old neighbor, Dikran. So basically, here this old man name is Dikran, and here he is holding the hummingbird. And earlier also I have showed you the picture. Here the narrator is recalling and explaining the story to us. So here the narrator tells that across the street lived old Dikran who was almost visually challenged. So in Fresno, California, across the street one old man is living, and his name is Dikran. Dikran, who was almost visually challenged, means Dikran had poor eyesight. He can't see a thing properly. Okay, so that is called visually challenged. Visually challenged means poor eyesight. One person can't see anything properly, so that is called visually challenged. Here also it tells the meaning of the visually challenged. Having greatly reduced power of sight means having poor eyesight. A person can't able to see the things properly, and he was past 80 and his wife was only a few years younger. So Dikran was past 80 and his wife was only a few years younger. Means Dikran was already 80 years and his wife was only few years younger. Means past 80 means a person had already passed the stage of that 80 years. Means he was above 80. Okay, don't get confused between past 80, present 80. Present 80 means a person current year is 80, but past 80 means he had already passed the year 80, means he is now 80 plus, and his wife perhaps will be of 76 or 77, something like this, means few years young. Suppose your father is 40 years old and your mother is few years younger than your father, means perhaps your mother must be 37 or 38. It's like that. Now they had a little house that was neat inside as it was ordinary outside, except for Dickens' garden. So they had a little house that was neat from inside but very simple and ordinary from outside. Okay, except Dickens' garden. Means Dickens' garden was very dirty and it was not neat and clean. but it was the best place of its kind in the world because it had its plant, grasses, trees, all strong in sweet black moist earth. And all things from the sky loved this spot in our poor neighborhood, and old Dickran loved them. Perhaps it was a means dirty garden, but it was a mixture of plant, bushes, tree, and everything that admired the beauty of the nature, and it attracts everyone. And all the things from the sky loved this Dikran garden, and Dikran also loved them. Okay, so now proceeding to the next paragraph. One freezing Sunday in the dead of winter, I saw Dikran standing in the middle of the street, trying to distinguish what was in his hand. So, narrator is telling here that one freezing Sunday in the dead of winter means in an extreme winter. The I saw Dikran means narrated saw Dikran standing in the middle of the street trying to distinguish means identify what was in his hand. And can you tell why he was trying to identify what was exactly in his hand? Because he was visually challenged. He had poor eyesight and he can't see a thing properly. So he was trying to investigate what was in my hand. And fascinated, I stood on the step of the front porch and watched the old man. And narrator want to know what was going to happen next. So narrator stood on the step of the front porch and watched the old man. And what the narrator observed, he would run around. He and look upward at the trees and then back to the palm of his hand. And the narrators see that the old Dikran is turning around and looking upward at the tree and then back to the palm of his hand because he can't exactly identify what was exactly present in his hand. So he need help. But the narrator stood there and was observing what the old Dikran will do now and what the action of the Dikran. So he stood in the street at least for 2 minutes and observing, watching the old Dikran and repeating the action. And at last he came to me. He held his hand out, and said in Armenian, "What is this in my hand?" So finally, old Dikran stood in the street at least for 2 minutes and repeating the action. Same way he is turning around, looking upward at the tree and trying to identify what was in my hand. Okay, and you can see he was turning around, looking upward and trying to distinguish what was in my hand. And we can see that it was hummingbird, but old Ikran can't identify. And here the narrator is observing all the accents. Okay, so finally, after repeating the same action or same scene for 2 minutes, at last the narrator came to the the old Ikran came to the narrator. Means at last he came to me. Means so Dikran now finally happily announced that the bird that is about to die, he will leave. It will leave now. And as he was visually challenged, he can't see anything properly. So he told the narrator to stay and watch here the bird's condition, whether it is surviving or not. So the transformation was incredible, miracle. Dikran kept his hand generously open. Generously means nobly open, and the hitherto helpless bird shot upward, suspended itself in space, and scared the life out of me. Hitherto means until now. Miss Dikran kept his hand open like this, and until now the helpless bird shot upward, suspended itself in space and scared the life out of me. As he was feeling better, as we can't keep the bird like this, bird need freedom, they should fly in the sky. As he was strong now, and also old Dickon kept his hand open like this, generously, widely open, nobly. Okay, and the bird shoot upward and gone. The new life of the little bird was magnificent. Okay, means the new life of the bird was heroic, brave. Okay, it can't able to move properly. Now it is in a heroic condition. Means it is so brave to fly now in the sky. And it spun about in the little kitchen, going to the window, coming back to the heat, suspending, circling as if it were summertime, and it had never felt better in its whole life. And the hummingbird had never felt better and good in his life than he is feeling now, after getting the love and care from the old declare and the vapor of the honey. Okay. As the window was closed due to the severe winter, he was moving there and there, circling around the kitchen, going to the heat. So the old man sat on the plain chair, unseen but attentive. He can't see anything, but he was very attentive. He can hear and he can feel what was happening around. So he listened carefully and kept asking about the bird, means what the bird was doing and what is the condition now and how it seemed to be, whether it showed sign of waking again, and whether or not it appeared to be restless. I kept describing the bird to him, and the narrator kept describing about the bird condition to the old Dickon, that it was doing that, it was doing that. Okay. When the bird was restless and wanted to go, so Dickon said that, instructed to the narrator that now you open the window and let it go. Now let the hummingbird go. He is fine now. Okay. And the narrator asked, I asked means the narrator asked, will it leave? So it is alive now and wants to go. He said, open the window. And the old Dickon told that it is alive now. Okay. And he wanted to go. The hummingbird is wants to go. So you should open the window. He should fly in its freedom. So as I opened the window, as narrator opened the window, the hummingbird stirred about here and there, feeling the cold from the outside. Then it suspended itself in the area of the open window, staring this way and that. The next second it was gone. So as the narrator opened the window, the hummingbird looked there and there, and he can feel the air from the outside, cold air from the outside. Then it suspended itself in the area of the open window, and in 1 second it was gone. It was dissolved in the blue sky. Means it was flew. So close to window, Dickon said. So now Dickon said, it was gone, now you close the window. We talked for a minute or two and then I went home. The narrator and old Dickon talked for a minute. Then the narrator returned back to its home. So Dick ran. Now after some day, here it told that after some day, in a gap interval of time, Dickon claimed the hummingbird lived through that winter, but I never knew for sure. Dickon told that the hummingbird lived through that winter, but the narrator was not sure whether it was alive or not. I saw hummingbirds again when summer came, but I couldn't tell one from the other. So the narrator told that I can see hummingbirds again in the summer when the summer will came, but I can't exactly tell that whether that particular hummingbird is living or not, that we had rescued. Here the crane is claiming that, means perhaps he is asking that whether about the hummingbird. One summer day I asked Dickran, means one summer day narrator asked Dickran that did it leave? that particular hummingbird that we had rescued. Among the flocks of hummingbirds, groups of hummingbirds, the narrator was asking about that particular bird, whether it was alive or not. Yes, I said, and the old Dikran told that yes. Do you remember the little bird that was dying last winter, the one we gave warm honey to? Did it live? But the narrator is asking that do you remember that little bird that was dying last winter and that we gave warm honey to it, and that particular bird, did it alive? Look about you, the old man said. Do you see the bird? I see hummingbirds, I said. The narrator told that I can't see that particular bird, yes, but yes, I can see all the hummingbirds, means a troop of hummingbirds. Each one of them is our bird, Dikran said. Dikran said that it doesn't matter whether that particular hummingbird was there or not, but each of them hummingbird is our birds. We shouldn't compare them. Each of them, he said swiftly and gently. And it emphasized the beautiful nature of old Dikran towards the creature of the hummingbirds. And it was a sweet, lovable, gentle story of ว์ⁱⁿᵗᵉ. Okay, and this story was written by ว์ⁱⁿᵗᵉ, who was born on 1908 and death on 1981, and he was an Armenian American novelist, playwright, and short story writer. And The Hummingbird That Lived Through Winter is one of his most popular short stories. So I hope you all have understood the story, and if any doubt is there or if any particular line you haven't understood, you can comment the same.